A 2,800-ton Venezuelan warship aimed itself like a spear at a U.S. Navy destroyer, and in less than 10 minutes, the Caribbean stood on the edge of disaster. September 15, 2025. 4:18 p.m. The Southern Caribbean Sea. The USS Knights, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, carrying more than 90 missiles and 320 sailors, was operating in international waters. Then, without warning, a Venezuelan Constitucion-class frigate accelerated from 14 knots to nearly 28, closing the gap at a speed that left just minutes before collision. No radio calls, no signals. Just steel and intent. This wasn't a drill. It was a calculated move, one that could have spiraled into a global headline within seconds. And the question is, how do you hold the line when silence itself feels like a threat? Stay with me, because what happened in those next 20 minutes will keep you at the edge of your seat. And tell me, what would you have done in that moment? September 15, 2025. 4:18 p.m. Local time. The Southern Caribbean Sea, where the horizon usually whispers calm, not conflict. But today, silence broke into tension. On the radar screens of the USS Knights, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer weighing over 9,200 tons, a new contact appeared. At first it looked routine, a Venezuelan patrol vessel, a Constitucion-class frigate, charting a steady heading at 14 knots. But within minutes, the picture shifted. The ship was accelerating hard, from 14 knots to 27 knots in under 180 seconds. A 2,800-ton steel hull was no longer sailing, it was charging. The course vector was unmistakable. Not a parallel transit, not a harmless shadow. It was aimed directly at the starboard bow of the Knights. The distance, just 18 nautical miles. That's roughly 21 minutes to impact if speed held. But speed wasn't holding, it was climbing. By the time the Combat Information Center confirmed, the closing speed suggested less than 12 minutes to contact. On the bridge of the Knights, the air grew heavier by the second. Officers and sailors who had drilled these scenarios hundreds of times now found themselves living one. The commanding officer gave the first order: log everything, maintain row, do not assume intentions. Yet assumptions weren't necessary. The radar track told the story itself. At 4:20 p.m., the Venezuelan vessel's exhaust haze was visible even to the naked eye. The turbines were being pushed to their limits. Deck cameras captured the plume rising against the late afternoon sky. One sailor whispered the obvious: "They're coming right at us." Numbers on the CIC screens flickered red. CPA, closest point of approach, 2.3 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 7 minutes, 45 seconds. At this speed, one wrong move could leave over 300 American sailors exposed, cornered in a steel hull that could become a political flashpoint within seconds. Hails went out across VHF Channel 16, the Universal Maritime Frequency. English first. Unidentified Venezuelan naval vessel. This is United States Navy warship on international transit. You are closing distance at high speed. Alter course immediately. No reply. Spanish followed. Buque naval venezolano. Aquí buque de guerra de los Estados Unidos en tránsito internacional. Está cerrando distancia a alta velocidad. Cambie de rumbo de inmediato. Still silence. Every unanswered call pulled the tension tighter. The bridge crew stared at the vector line on the navigation plotter, a thin red arrow pointing directly at them, shortening by the second. By 4:23 p.m., the Constitucion's hull was visible on the horizon. Through the long-range optics, its outline sharpened. A forward-mounted 76mm OTO Melara gun, twin radar masts, deck crew moving along the rails. Helmets were on. No weapon stations were manned yet, but the posture was unmistakable. The Knights answered with quiet precision. The 5-inch Mark 45 naval gun rotated slowly, deliberately, just enough to be seen, not enough to trigger escalation. On the electronic displays, the SLQ-32 picked up emissions from the Venezuelan vessel. They were sweeping, searching, watching. Every ping was logged, every bearing recorded. In those minutes, the calm sea became a chessboard of steel and signals. One American destroyer, one Venezuelan frigate. Tens of thousands of tons of displacement closing at a combined speed of nearly 50 knots. And in that silence, one truth became undeniable. This was not an accident, it was a choice. 4:24 p.m. The Venezuelan frigate is less than 10 nautical miles away. Its turbines roar, sending a plume of black haze across the horizon. At this speed, 27 knots and climbing time collapses. The Knights has under 7 minutes before the ships converge to within lethal proximity. On the bridge, voices are steady but clipped. The Combat Information Center relays in calm precision. Bearing steady, 134 degrees relative. CPA, 2.1 nautical miles. Time to CPA, 6 minutes, 30 seconds. Every sailor knows what those numbers mean. At that range, even a minor miscalculation could spark headlines around the world before the hour is over. The captain orders the second round of hails. English first, then Spanish, the words sharp and deliberate. Still nothing. No break in radio static. No flicker of acknowledgement. Silence the kind that weighs heavier than threats. So the Knights answers in its own language. Electronic Warfare Suite SLQ-32 goes fully active. Its receivers capture 312 distinct radar emissions from the Venezuelan ship in less than 90 seconds. Each one logged, time-stamped, and stored. Not just signals, they're evidence. If this encounter escalates, those recordings could end up at the Pentagon or in front of the United Nations. Long-range optics pivot and lock. The Venezuelan deck comes alive on screen. 9 sailors in helmets shifting near the forward gun mount. Not manned yet, but close enough. Through the stabilized lenses, an officer can even be seen lifting binoculars toward the Knights. And then, the American answer becomes visible. The Mark 45 naval gun swivels. Slow but unmistakable. Its 127mm barrel aligns just off the bow, not threatening, but clear. A reminder, you are being watched. On the flight deck, tension ratchets higher. Ground crew lock down 2 sensor pods, secure flare canisters, and prep the Seahawk helicopter. For now, the helicopter remains chained to the deck, but everyone knows what's next. If the frigate closes inside, 2 miles, the Seahawk will be airborne within 90 seconds. And here's the question for you. Imagine standing there, watching 2,800 tons of steel accelerating toward you, ignoring every warning. Would you trust silence or prepare for the worst? Drop your thoughts below. Because this isn't theory, it's what real sailors face when routine patrols turn into standoffs that can ignite a region. By 4:26 p.m., the numbers worsen. Speed 28 knots, distance 7 nautical miles, time to CPA 5 minutes flat, the sea is calm, the sky is blue. And yet, aboard the Knights, every heartbeat is measuring seconds, not minutes. The Venezuelan crew makes no attempt to slow down. Their radar sweep narrows, moving from wide scan to surface search mode. Still not fire control, but a step closer. A step that cannot be ignored. The captain's voice cuts through. Flight ops green, prepare to launch. And with that, the stage is set. The Seahawk, the Navy's airborne toolbox, is about to leave the deck, bringing presence, not provocation. What happens when wings meet steel? That's where the story turns next. 4:27 p.m., the order is given. Flight ops green. The Seahawk rises. Its rotors claw at the humid Caribbean air, pulling 9 tons of steel and sensors off the deck of the Knights. Within 45 seconds, the helicopter clears the bow, climbing to 280 feet, banking eastward. 2 pilots, 1 sensor operator, all eyes fixed on the Venezuelan frigate charging across the waves. From the nose camera, the silhouette sharpens. Hull number 23, Constitucion class. The Seahawk's MX-20 electro-optical system zooms tight, resolving not just shapes but faces. 11 distinct heat signatures flicker on deck, each sailor's movement tracked in infrared. The thermal record alone weighs 3.6 gigabytes in under 2 minutes proof, not speculation. At 8 nautical miles, the Seahawk dips lower, holding steady at 220 feet. Its FLIR crosshairs settle over the Venezuelan bridge windows. And then the light, a green laser, pulses across the glass. Non-lethal, impossible to ignore. Inside the Venezuelan bridge, silhouettes stir. A figure raises binoculars, another waves an arm, uncertain if it's defiance or acknowledgement. The Seahawk circles wide, banking left, giving the entire Venezuelan crew a view of its open weapons bay. They cannot know if the payload is sonar buoys, torpedoes, or empty racks. That uncertainty is deliberate. At 4:29 p.m., the frigate escalates in its own way. The SLQ-32 aboard the Knights records a narrowed radar sweep, surface search mode tightening. Still no fire control tone, but closer than before. A single click into the wrong frequency, and this would no longer be posturing. The Seahawk answers not with missiles, but with optics. Its camera zooms again, capturing the Venezuelan bow wake, shrinking as speed drops from 28 to 24 knots. Exhaust haze thins. The turbines are no longer screaming at full burn. Deck crew who moments before hovered near the gun mount now step back, hands away from controls. At 4:31 p.m., the CPA stretches from 2.1 nautical miles to 2.8. A subtle shift, but unmistakable. The collision course is breaking. Above them, the Seahawk holds its orbit silent, circling, recording every second. A reminder written not in steel or fire, but in data and presence. You are seen, you are logged, and you will not close the gap. 4:32 p.m. The sea holds its breath. The Venezuelan frigate, moments ago charging at 28 knots, begins to bleed speed. 24 knots. Then, 21. Its wake shortens, white spray collapsing into the hull. On the night CIC displays, the CPA stretches further 3.1 nautical miles now. Not safe, but no longer on a knife's edge. Through the Seahawk's infrared lens, the change is clear. Deck crew once clustered near the 76mm gun disperse. One sailor steps back with both arms raised, palms out the universal language of no harm intended. At 4:34 p.m., the first sound crackles across the bridge radios of the Knights. Spanish formal deliberate, United States naval vessel, this is Venezuelan Navy ship. We are conducting sovereign patrol operations near our waters. Request that you alter course. The message is not an apology, not even close. But after 16 unanswered hails, it is the first admission of awareness. The Knights replies instantly, firm and measured. Venezuelan naval vessel, this is United States warship conducting lawful transit in international waters. Your movements are unsafe and recorded. Any further escalation will be treated as hostile intent. No response follows, just the steady churn of engines. But the effect is undeniable. By 4:36 p.m., sensors confirm the frigate's turbines throttling down further 19 knots. Heading adjusts 7 degrees to port, no longer cutting directly across the Knight's bow. The gap widens slowly, deliberately. The Seahawk circles overhead at 250 feet, recording every second. Its MX-20 feed catalogs 432 gigabytes of data in just under 10 minutes, heat signatures, course vectors, exhaust analysis. This is more than surveillance. It is legal proof, admissible evidence if this encounter ever reaches the UN floor. On deck, sailors of the Knights exhale in silence. Helm remains steady. Guns remain trained, but idle. And the gap grows. 6 nautical miles. Then 8. 4:38 p.m. The confrontation is not over. But it has shifted. Venezuela is no longer charging. It is shadowing, carefully, pressure applied, message delivered. For the Americans, the standoff is far from routine. It is a logbook full of signals, numbers, and images that can tell a story louder than any missile. And as the Caribbean sun dips lower, both ships know this was not a clash of firepower, it was a clash of presence. 4:45 p.m. The Venezuelan frigate has fallen back, 9 nautical miles off the Knight's starboard quarter, engines steady at 18 knots. Still visible, still watching but no longer lunging forward. The immediate crisis has passed. Yet in truth, this clash was never just about 2 ships on open water. It was about something larger. 13 days earlier, September 2nd, 2025, the U.S. Southern Command had confirmed a rare kinetic strike. 3 Venezuelan smuggling freighters, disguised as fishing vessels, were intercepted in international waters north of Trinidad. The cargo, 152 tons of synthetic opioid precursors and over $1.3 billion in cash reserves hidden in steel containers. Neutralization was swift. Unmanned systems guided by Coast Guard surveillance drones disabled all 3 vessels in under 6 minutes. For Washington, the message was simple. Trafficking through the Caribbean will no longer be tolerated, no matter the disguise. For Caracas, the loss was staggering. Billions in cartel-linked finance cut from its lifeline overnight. In the weeks that followed, U.S. analysts tracked a surge in Venezuelan naval deployments. Not just Coast Guard cutters, but frigates, patrol craft, and even aging submarines, all moving erratically beyond the 2-4 nautical mile line. On September 9th and 10th, 2 separate U.S. Navy destroyers reported flyovers from Venezuelan K-8 light attack jets, flying dangerously low at 600 feet, unarmed but fully lit with electro-optical pods. A message in the sky. We see you, and we can shadow you too. The confrontation with the Knights fits the same pattern. Venezuela does not seek to win a firefight that calculus is impossible against a U.S. destroyer bristling with over 90 vertical launch cells, advanced radar, and 300 sailors trained for war at sea. Instead, the aim is friction, tactical noise. Moments where headlines replace missiles. And the American playbook? Predictable by design. Presence, not provocation. Surveillance, not suppression. Every radar ping captured, every laser pulse logged, every evasive maneuver documented in terabytes of time-stamped proof. In a world where a single clip of a green laser on a bridge window can go viral in minutes, the strongest weapon is often not the missile, but the memory card. By sunset, the Knights maintains course. Engines steady, weapons silent. Venezuela's frigate drifts wider, a shadow fading on the radar scope. This was not combat. It was pressure played like a chess move on blue water. Caracas sent its signal. Washington replied without blinking. The Caribbean remains volatile not because of what was fired, but because of what was not. By the time the sun dipped below the Caribbean horizon, the USS Knights held steady, its logbooks filled with every signal, every maneuver, every second of tension. The Venezuelan frigate had retreated, not defeated but diminished, leaving behind a wake that carried more questions than answers. Was it a warning, a test, or just a statement of defiance? What's clear is that this was no ordinary patrol. It was a reminder that the Caribbean has become a chessboard, where presence and perception matter as much as missiles and steel. Neither side fired a shot, yet both left with their messages delivered, one in silence, the other in restraint. But here's the real question for you. Should the U.S. Navy answer these challenges with greater force, or is calm, calculated restraint the stronger weapon? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading every thought. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the front lines of the sea.